Hello, and welcome to Badger Talks Live, which brings exciting happenings, resources, and talent from your UW flagship campus to the people of Wisconsin and beyond. I'm Ashley Michaels, originally from Tucson, Arizona. I'm a first-year grad student at UW-Madison in the School of Agriculture and Life Science, studying clinical nutrition. I'm pleased to introduce Angela Flickinger, Outreach Program Manager for Healthy Eating and Active Living within the Institute of Health and Wellbeing at UW-Madison's Division of Extension. She is a registered dietitian, has a master's in public health, and is also a personal trainer. Today, Angela will be talking about Wisconsin StrongBodies, a low-cost, community-based strength training program aimed at midlife and older adults that includes progressive resistance strength training, balance training, and flexibility exercises. Aggressive resistance strength training, balance training, and flexibility exercises. The primary objective of the StrongBodies program is to help communities implement safe and effective strength training programs for midlife and older adults of all abilities. Prior to her current role, Angela was a professor in the Department of Family Development and a health and well-being educator in Rock County. Please welcome Angela Flickinger.
Thank you so much, Ashley. We are going to talk about the StrongBodies program today. So here we are. Thanks for joining us, and we will get on moving. That is if I can make my slides move. I can. All right. So thank you again, Ashley. We are going to talk all about the StrongBodies program, but before I say that, I wanted just to touch a little bit about extension and the mission. So kind of like Badger Talks Live, extension is part of the Wisconsin idea. So UW-Madison Extension is an outreach partner of UW-Madison, and essentially we are in many local communities addressing statewide and national issues. And so housed in Extension, I, as Ashley said, am in the Health and Wellbeing Institute and am the Healthy Eating Active Living Program Manager. And we have educators throughout the state and county offices working collaboratively in communities to create opportunities for health. So what is the StrongBodies program? That's what we're going to talk about in the next 30+ minutes. We're going to talk a little bit about the Wisconsin data, what it looks like, why strength training is so important, proof that it works, because we wouldn't be talking about it unless we had some proof, what Extension's role has been in getting this program up and going in Wisconsin, some of the outcomes and local stories that we hear about. We're going to talk a little bit about assessing, how do you assess your own strength, and then finding out where you can find a local program, and if you're interested in becoming a StrongBodies volunteer. So StrongBodies, like Ashley said, this is an evidence-based, community-based strength training program that we have implemented around essentially in most counties in Wisconsin for middle-aged and older adults. It is 8 to 16 weeks long. It can be longer than that. It's 2 to 3 times a week for at least an hour, and there's additional health and nutrition education that's added to it. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the creator of this program actually comes from Tufts University. So Dr. Miriam Nelson and Rebecca Seguin, now of Texas A&M, were looking at conducting a study in 1994. And so a long time ago, they were looking at where is all the research and data around women in strength training, and especially postmenopausal women, and there wasn't a whole lot of research. So she was really a pioneer in creating some research and then writing lots of books that came after that. And her research showed that postmenopausal women in this study, they essentially did this program, they increased their muscle mass and strength and bone density and balance. And so I'm very appreciative that she created this program. Dr. Miriam Nelson and Dr. Rebecca Seguin created this program, because without it, we wouldn't have it here in Wisconsin. And so to begin with, what are we supposed to be doing? We all know we should, there's a lot of things we should do. But Exercise-wise, for ideal and optimal health, there's a couple things. There's things that we could be doing just to maintain our health, and there's things that if we actually want to improve our health, what we could be doing. The recommendation is that we get 150 minutes as adults of cardiovascular exercise, so getting your heart rate up, and 2 times a week strength training exercises, so something that makes your muscles stronger. And so it's not great, but only about 20% of folks meet that recommendation of getting their regular activity. So there's 80% of folks that are not getting meeting that recommendation. And for strength training, that number is really low. So nationally, it's only about 6% of women do strength training on a regular basis. And I think 20% of folks, adults, are not getting any muscle strengthening activity or cardiovascular activity. So they might be getting their activity by just working and daily living, but not getting that activity that would actually improve their health. And so we know that you hear this over and over, like, oh, everyone should exercise. If it was so easy, we would all be doing it all the time. It's not easy. There's a lot of things that prevent us from exercising on a regular basis. But the data has repeatedly shown that regular, just physical activity and regular getting your heart rate up lowers your risk for many things, many diseases, cancer, stroke, high blood pressure, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, breast cancer, and colon cancer, and also helps you maintain your weight and prevents you from falling and reduces depression. So there's many reasons to do it. We used to think that all of these things would happen to our bodies as we age. We used to think, oh my goodness, as we age, I can't do that because I'm older, or it's just because I'm old and that's why everything's kind of falling apart. And some things do happen as we age. Our bodies go through massive changes in our life cycle. And systems do start to maybe not be efficient as they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. But what we do know is lots of things are controllable. So there's a lot of things that we can actually maintain and control within our sphere of influence with our body. And what we can control is how active we are. And if we're not active, we lose muscle mass and strength and cardiovascular strength and flexibility and your bone density and your balance. So those are all things that with regular physical activity that we can maintain and we can keep that. So that's what I want to hang on to today, is that with regular strength training, we can really impact our own personal health in those ways. In physical activity, regular physical activity can prevent lots of disease. And as you can see on the infographic, 1 in 12 cases of diabetes could be completely prevented if we were regularly strength training or exercising. And that's costly. So we know it costs a lot of money to treat disease. And more importantly, it costs lives. So we have early death because of physical inactivity. I think this number is always pretty startling to me, is that healthcare costs related to physical inactivity is associated with $117 billion in annual healthcare cost. So think of if we as a society could keep our fitness levels at a higher level and maintain and get those health benefits, think of the healthcare savings that we could create. And without being political, wouldn't that be healthcare reform? So all of those things we spoke of before were like, why should we exercise? This is specifically why should we strength train? So why should twice a week I strengthen my muscles or maintain my muscle mass by doing certain exercises? And we're going to talk a little bit about what the StrongBody program has proved for adults over the last decade. And what's up in front of you on the screen is exactly what the program has proved to do, and research has indicated that regular strength training can do. So it can reduce your arthritis symptoms and improve sleep and reduce depression and improve glucose control and maintain your muscle mass. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of that research that goes along with this program. So As we age, data shows that about in your 40s, which is middle-aged, if we average life is 80-some, 40 is about middle age, that we lose about 1/4 of a pound of muscle each year unless you are doing targeted activity. So you can see a picture on the left side of the screen is a young active thigh. So if you took my thigh and you cut it in half and you flipped it over, you could see that about the light gray is muscle. So there's about 80% muscle, 20% fat, 10, 15% fat maybe. And then you see in the middle a white femur bone that's nice and strong. And on the other side, you can see what a sedentary leg looks like. So this leg is actually smaller. So this person might wear a size 6 pair of jeans versus a size 12 pair of jeans. But what you can see is that about 50% of this leg is fat, 50% is muscle, and that the bone density in that bone is a little thinned out. So I don't know about you, but for me, I would much rather have a healthy thigh that's going to be able to help me function in my daily living versus a smaller thigh. So why do we lose it? Why do we start losing this muscle mass and getting sarcopenia? And a lot of it happens because we can become less active. Also, it can be from hormonal shifts or hormonal deficiencies, changes in diet, and the development of chronic conditions. And what happens when we lose that is we become weaker. So we have an increased risk of falls. And if we fall, we more likely break something. And if you break something, you more likely don't recover for a while. So it diminishes that quality of life. And this is what microscopically what a bone looks like. So you can see like nice, healthy, strong bone. And then next to it is a bone that is starting to thin out and broken. And when those bones are broken, they start to shrink together and compress. And so how this is affecting us is we're living really a lot longer than we used to live. So 54 million Americans have osteoporosis or low bone density. So where their bones are starting to not have the structure, the optimal structure. And 80% of those are women. And that's why this program originally was called Strong Women, because all of the research was done on women, especially ones that were at risk for osteoporosis. And in Wisconsin, we renamed it to be StrongBodies. That's a side note. But 50% of women will experience at some time in their life an osteoporosis-related fracture. And so if you think that's a huge percent, like 50% chance I break a bone from osteoporosis is pretty significant. That's a higher risk of me getting breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and uterine cancer combined. But we don't necessarily fear osteoporosis as much as we fear getting those cancers. We used to think that people happens as people as they age. And we know that this is actually when those bones start compressing. And this is a preventable osteoporosis. For some folks, it's not preventable, but the majority of osteoporosis is very preventable. And you can see as the curvature of their spine, they're getting a little like dip in the lower back and a hump in their upper back. And that's because those bones are compressing together and they're breaking. And so this is also something that impacts many women with osteoporosis. And so they did a study, and I won't bore you with all the details of the study, but this study was part of the essence of how the StrongBodies program came into being. And so they took postmenopausal women, and they took a group that wasn't going to do anything, and we took 20 people that were actually going to strength train, and they did it for an entire year. So the great thing is if you're in a study for a year, there's a lot of accountability. So twice a week for a year, these people strength trained, and what they found after a year is they got stronger and their muscle mass got bigger and their fat got smaller and their balance increased and their physical activity increased. And most importantly, well, not most importantly, but very importantly, was their bone density improved. So not only did they stop it in their tracks, they actually improved their bone density, which was great. And as women age, if they aren't strength training on a regular basis and they hit menopause, they lose about 1 to 2% of their bone density every year. So think about hitting menopause around 50 or 60 years old and you live until you're 80, that's every year. If you're not strength training, that bone density just keeps dropping and dropping and dropping and putting you at other risks. And so after the study, they had all of the moms, all of the participants were moms, and they all had daughters. So they brought in all of their daughters and they did strength tests on their daughters and the moms. And in every single situation, the moms were stronger than the daughters. So even just regularly 2 hours a week in this study, their moms kind of absurded their daughters. And so to bring it back locally, I had a participant in one of my classes. So I was lucky enough in 2006 to get trained in the StrongBodies program and then become a leader and do this program in Rock County. So we have a participant, Sharon, in Rock County that was a double lung transplant. And so she was bedridden for a while, had a transplant, had to recover in the hospital for 2 months. So you can imagine she was kind of at the lowest point of her strength, right? She was at probably the most vulnerable place her body could be. And she joined the program and she started strength training on a regular basis. So that was just like one thing she could do every week that she could control. And so she joined the class in 2007, has been doing the class ever since, and is now a leader of the class. So is now teaching the class twice a week in Rock County. And what she has proven to other women is an example of how you can come from one place and do something on a regular basis, and it can really improve your health. So the other thing that impacts lots of people is diabetes. And in Wisconsin specifically, about 23% of adults have diabetes. And there's lots of evidence that regular strength training can actually help with diabetic control. And so they did a study, it was 16 weeks. So instead of a year-long study, they just did like a 4-week or a 4-month study. And what they found even after just 4 months is that their strength got better, their belly fat went down, their muscle mass went up, their medications went down by 72%. So I think the most significant thing about this, and this would be healthcare reform also. So if we could reduce everyone's medication, diabetic medication by 72%, that would be significant healthcare cost savings. And the only thing that they did differently in this study was strength train on a regular basis. And you probably know as somebody with arthritis, if you have an aging body, many people experience arthritis, and it's a catch-22. It's this thing that you don't want to move because your joints hurt, and when you move, it hurts worse. But if you don't move, then more inflammation can happen and more arthritis can happen, and you can get more stiff. So again, there's millions of people and Americans that have arthritis. And it affects lots of people. So like if your knees hurt, you're not likely to go out into public where you're going to have to go up and down stairs. And so you can see on the left, there is a picture of a healthy knee. And then on the right, you can see that bone rubbing on bone. So the bone rubbing on bone causes inflammation and causes pain and soreness. And so what we can do by strength training is improve the muscles around the knee to kind of lift and create a natural space so we don't have bone rubbing on bone. And they did a study. This was a home study, and what they found specifically that these people were strength training, but they got stronger after 4 months. They were able to get up and down from a chair 15% more. Most significantly is that they decreased their pain by about 43%. So chronic pain leads to depression and self-confidence issues. So reversing that was very significant. And Dr. Nelson, this is the picture on the left is Dr. Nelson is on the right of that picture, and her sister-in-law has rheumatoid arthritis, which can affect every joint in your body. And she's actually bedridden for a while. And what she started to do was strength training on a regular basis, but starting just minutes at a time because she was not doing well. Her goal was to climb the summit of Mount Washington, in which she did because there's a picture of it. But mostly is that strength training is part of her medicine. So if the dedication to her strength training is not an option for her to manage her chronic condition. And back to a local example. So we have Lori from Fond du Lac County, who also was one of the participants in the county. And what she reported back to her leader is that she had more energy for mowing her yard and raking and gardening, and that she was able to carry a 40-pound bag of water softener salt into her basement, in which she hadn't done for a couple years prior. And so as much as that might sound like a thing or not a thing, it was really significant for her. So it wasn't climbing the top of a mountain, but what it was doing is giving her like daily functionability back in her life to do something significant. She also became a leader in the program. So we know it works. So what did Extension do about it? So we learned about the program. In 2008, I was able to become trained as the StrongBodies ambassador for Wisconsin, which essentially just meant that I could train other people to do the program in Wisconsin. And so since then, we have had 50 trainings. We've trained over 1,000 of them. This program is accessible and available. And we have reached about 67 of the Wisconsin counties, including a couple tribes. And we have volunteers now teaching the program, because what happened is like people started the program. We were like, okay, great, do this 12-week program and then do something else. But what we found is that people started the program and then wanted to do another 12 weeks and another 12 weeks, which is a great problem to have, except that we had to sustain the program somehow and so we created volunteers. So we created these StrongBodies volunteers to continue the program, and we could start new programs throughout the state. We also created partnerships with our aging units in local communities and with ADRCs and with Wisconsin Institute for Healthy Living. So all of different partnerships locally so we could get this program up and available to all. We also created a show on Wisconsin Public Television for production, so it can be shown on a regular basis and reach kind of all the corners of Wisconsin. Since then, we've had about 20,000 unduplicated participants in the program, which is great. And you can see from the map, this is where all of the classes were prior to COVID. So what about COVID? What happened then? So this program was meant to be face-to-face. It has a lot of benefits for socialization and being in a local community and not having to drive super far to go to a class to exercise. But because of COVID, unfortunately, we weren't able to get together to protect the health of all of us. And so what happened is we trained 50 of our leaders around the state to do the class virtually. So we trained them in a Zoom platform. We changed up how we implemented the program a little bit and brought it into the homes and the folks that had availability to do it virtually. And our goal for this entire program is that we're changing the face of aging. So as maybe I never saw my grandmother on a bike or lifting weights or surfing, what I hope for the future young people is that they do see their grandparents or their great-grandparents or their parents doing things more active in life because they have the confidence and because they have the strength to do it. And so when we've done, asked after all of these years, we keep asking, what are the health benefits? And we know it's evidence-based, so we know people are getting benefits from regular strength training. But we do know that the thousands of participants have reported that they've improved their mental health, their physical health, improved socialization, decreased medication, decreased medical costs. So there's all kinds of things that we regularly get feedback for, which this is why we keep doing it. This is a participant from Monroe County, Wisconsin, and she has done many classes since it was brought to Monroe County and through the extension office. And she was through her second round of chemotherapy. And she found the program, she became stronger to do just like the normal daily livings. But most importantly, she felt like she gained control back over her life and discovered that her body and mind were resilient. So this is a pretty great example of what the program can do for folks. One thing that we didn't measure, but we are finding out, especially during this COVID situation, is that this class binded people socially. So there was many classes going on, but people created relationships, and because the classes continued and continued, they created a great relationships and a social kind of network and camaraderie. And this is a team, a class from Price County that reported that specifically, that social kind of construct. And so if you're wondering like, well, where am I with my strength? How am I feeling about my strength? You probably can do some self-reflection of how good your balance is, right? So how tired you get. But if you want to like measure up, see how you are compared to other folks around you, you can do a couple things to assess your fitness. And one thing to test your flexibility you can do is see how close you can get to touching your toes when you're sitting in a chair. I'm not going to illustrate that one because of the camera. But another flexibility one is reaching behind your head and seeing how close your fingers can come together. And your right arm, if you're right-handed, is usually a little bit more agile, and you don't need to do this if you have a shoulder problem, but you can kind of see how close you can get your fingers together. With the goal is if you're a couple inches apart or many inches apart, that the goal is as you get stronger and as you build up your muscles, that you'll maybe get a little bit closer, and so you can keep your range of motion in your muscles and joints. The other test that we love to do pre and post with our participants is a 2-minute step test, in which we have people walk, march in place for 2 minutes straight to see how many steps they get. And this one is a huge indicator of if, as you get stronger, you can see how many more steps you can get in 2 minutes. Okay, so where do I find a program in Wisconsin? So where can I get signed up if I've sold it to you and if you're interested? I should say first, what you expect is that it's going to be 8 to 12 exercises. It's actually the same exercises throughout the program. So there is an advanced training and there's a cardio version. There's all kinds of things that we've added to the program. But the essence of the original StrongBodies program is the same 8 to 12 strength exercises. But the key is that we keep adding more weights. So as we add more weights, we get stronger. What you would need to participate is yourself if you're going to a class as classes start to open up, and or if you're participating virtually, is some stable internet connection. And to get started, up 2 pounds of like 3 and 5 pound hand weights or more as you get stronger, which you can use any kind of hand weights, but anything like these work great. And because of COVID, they're not as available. So even if you're checking at your thrifting stores, there can be some there. And then an ankle weight. So this is an adjustable ankle weight. You can actually see inside of it, and it has some weights that are in it. So this is great because it's adjustable. So you can add weights as you get stronger and take them out if you need a little break. But those are kind of essentially some of the tools that you would need in a mat. Many of the classes around the state have weights on at their site. So if you're doing it from home, you would need some sort of weight or resistance. So some of the exercises that we do in the class is there's 12 of them, but we go through all of the muscles, right? So we go and do a shoulder press for the shoulders, and we do the upper back, and we do a squat for the legs, and we do hip exercises. And then we also do some balance exercises. So one thing that we do is the one-legged stork. So our goal is to be able to stand on one foot for 2 minutes. And if I said, just stand on your foot for 2 minutes, a lot of people couldn't just instantly do that. That's something that we start for 10 seconds and that we build up. And the great thing about strength training is that you start with where you're at. So you could feel like you could not even lift any weights, and you start with no weights. You can just lift your arms, or you can barely lift your arms. And then as you get stronger, you keep on adding additional weight. So to find a program, I have the link here, and we'll add the link to the resources at the bottom. And this website will take you to our StrongBodies Wisconsin website. So we created this website where you can find a class near you. So there is virtual classes available statewide for any participants if you want to join to a virtual class. And then there's also face-to-face classes as we start reopening. So as people are getting vaccinated and as people feel more comfortable but with moving in spaces together, there'll be more classes available online. And so I'm hoping that as we are in a healthier space in a couple months, that we can continue these classes throughout the state. And for now, the availability might be a little bit less, but you can always join the class virtually. There is a list, or there is a document on the website that specifically says where you can find a class in your county. So our website has also a link to the Wisconsin Public Television StrongBodies show. So if you are like, I am not going to join a virtual class, I don't have technology, or I'm not interested in showing my face, well, you don't have to show your face. You can turn your camera off. However, you can just watch it from home and do it from home. So this is something that you can do from home. There's also millions and millions of amazing exercises in this virtual world. But if you're looking for a taster, or like, oh, maybe I'm interested in that, you can sure watch the show online and see if it works from you, and that it works for you, and then join a virtual class or a in-person class. We just know that the key to strength training is that you create a network to keep you accountable. So people will say, people know what they're supposed to do. Like, we know we're supposed to like floss our teeth and, eat lots of fruits and vegetables and strength train on a regular basis. And we all know all of these things. And if we could just will ourselves to do these things, we would all be perfectly healthy, probably. The problem isn't individuals like, oh, I don't have enough education, or it's more than an individual choice. We have certain behaviors because of our environments, right? So if I have a friend to go with, I'm more likely to do it. If I have, if it's easy for me to participate, like I can just do it because it's at the perfect time when I pick up my kids from school, or because church just ended, or whatever the environment is that makes you most successful. And this graph is all the things that impact our choice to do physical activity. So if you're feeling like, oh, I should be doing this, or feeling guilty about it, all of these things also need to be in place in a political environment, in a social environment, in your natural environment. So if we can set things up in our environments to make us more successful, that would be awesome. So my suggestions would be getting a buddy to do it with you, having somebody else commit so you have that social connection. Getting your clothes on in the beginning of the day that you're going to work out in, so you don't have to transition into different clothes later. Telling someone about it, even by telling someone you're going to do it, you're more likely to do it. And the key to getting stronger, as you can see on this comic, is that you really have to lift more weights, or you have to do more effort if you want improvement. So there's lots of things we can do to maintain. So if you just want to maintain what you have, then you keep going on your walks that you do, or you keep maintaining. But if we want to improve our health, if we want to do things that like make our health better, or we get stronger, we're going to have to change some things up. And what that looks like is that, when you're lifting weights, we keep adding a couple pounds on every couple weeks until we get at this like a threshold where we know we're at a really great place for our age and our body. And after that, we might need to change the exercise to make it a little bit more hard or more resistance. And so the 3 keys to wrap up is the intensity of it. So by increasing that load gradually, the progression, and also the just consistency of doing the program. So 12 weeks is great. The evidence says even just 8 weeks, twice a week, you start seeing some transformation in your strength. But if we can maintain that and consistently do it over a long period of time and make it a habit, that's really where we get those massive health benefits. So one other question that I get quite a bit is, well, what if I want to become a StrongBodies leader? What if I want to become a volunteer in the community? And I love when folks are interested in this. And we have all kinds of peer community leaders in Wisconsin. So we have 90 that are extension volunteers or were prior to us entering into this COVID space. And we have many others through aging units and through community organizations that are teaching the program. So if you're interested, we have a training coming up in August that you can for sure sign up to be a leader. There's a cost to become a leader. And at this point, we don't know if that's going to be virtual or not. But if you are interested in that, feel free to also contact me or contact, you can go to our website and sign up. And so with that, I just want to give a big shout out and a thank you to all of the people around Wisconsin that have made this program successful. So the beautiful woman on the right of this is my mother, who was a participant in StrongBodies, and she too had breast cancer, and she started participating, and she had 9 kids. She's an amazing woman, always working hard, but had never exercised, like she was like, why would I do that? I work all day. She's like a farm woman. Like, why would you do that when you work all day? And she had breast cancer, went through chemotherapy, joined a class. And at that time I was having my second child, and she actually was much stronger than I was coming out of that program, as I was sitting in front of the class, barely able to teach. And she was working her butt off, getting us strong. So she is quite an inspiration to me to age gracefully. And all of the leaders around the state, the extension leaders and the ADRC leaders and the people that are supporting this program, it's only available around the communities because of all the people that have put in a lot of time and effort. And with that, I would like to wrap up. And if you have any questions, feel free to jot them down. And Fran, if you have any questions for me, we can continue.
Yeah, Angela, thank you so much. What a phenomenal program that feels so community-based, but yet is like Wisconsin-wide. What a great example of the Wisconsin idea in action. So thanks so much for sharing that. Hi, everybody. Fran Paleo-Moyer, Badger Talks producer. We do have a couple of questions that people posted in the chat. Kathy Walsh is asking the pretty obvious question, is there a charge for these classes? And if so, what is that?
So it's usually up to the local community, and how we operate as a state is that nothing is ever a for sure charge. It's a suggested donation. And so on average, it's about $20 to $30 around the state. Some of the classes are completely free and some of them, but it's always listed as a suggested donation. So if it's something that is not something that you can afford at the time or not prioritize, that is completely fine. So our goal is to make sure it's accessible to all.
Okay, great. Good to know. And then you had mentioned the Wisconsin Public Television connection, but are there classes that are sort of like a video on demand that people can just call up and watch virtually somewhere?
So the public television one you can watch at any time. It's also on a YouTube video. So that is available on our website and you can watch it at any time. And because the class is an evidence-based class, it's the same class every time. You can just gradually increase your weights.
Okay, excellent. And I loved your shout out to the size 12 women. Compared the 6 to 12, favoring the 12.
Very relatable.
Yeah. So question about cardio. So as we read our health magazines and as we're all aging and we realize on the importance of cardio, how does cardio fit into the strength training program? Are they two different things? Do people still need to go for their long walks and also do the strength training? Or what is your recommendation there?
Yeah, really great question. So the recommendation as a whole is that we're getting like 150 minutes of cardio per week. So if you break that down, like 30 minutes of getting your heart rate up. So when you get your heart rate up and sustain your heart rate at a little higher level, that's when you get those cardiovascular respiratory benefits. Separate from that is the strength training. So this program is very slow and calculated. So you don't necessarily get your heart rate revved up as you're doing like really slow, intentional strength training exercises. So yes, you would definitely want to still take a walk and still do other things that would get your cardiovascular, system engaged. However, on a side note, we have a lot of educators that have been trained in the advanced program or are doing, so there's like a little breaks in the program. So you do, let's say you do 10 wrist curls, and then you take a 1 minute break and then you do 10 wrist curls again. And so in that 1 minute break, there's lots of instructors that are doing cardio. So they're doing like, even just marching in place or getting your heart rate up a little bit. So we have a progression in the program that those kind of elements can be added in.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Kathy is also asking, do they include nutrition help? Is there nutrition help available through Extension or through this program?
So Extension has a breadth of educators around the state that are very qualified to do nutrition education and health education and some policy systems environment work around nutrition and physical activity. So depending on what county you're in and depending how it's staffed, and I'm not sure, I can't guarantee that you're going to get all your services, but what this program does entail is some nutrition education that comes with the program that they can do, lessons of. And what we've been seeing in the virtual environment is that there's been a lot more interest in health education. So we'll have speakers coming and talk about anything that the participants are, interested in. So it's very adaptable of what kind of education you get, but at a minimum, you can get some nutrition education and basic health education.
Fantastic. Well, Angela, what a phenomenal program and an opportunity for people around the state to not only build up their strength, but also maybe make some connections with other people who are looking to get stronger. So thanks so much for sharing with us today. Really appreciate you taking the time out.
Thank you so much.
So join us next week, everybody. We're going to be having our Badger Talks live at a special time at 1:30 next Tuesday. Please join us. We're going to be talking to Gary Brown, who's the Director of Campus Planning, and Kip McMahon, who's the University Architect and Director of Facility Planning. And they're going to be talking about the love-hate relationship with the Mossy Humanities building on campus. You may be familiar with it if you're a local. Lots of controversy around this building, and they're going to be talking about its past and future. So please join us for that. As always, visit badgertalks.wis.edu where you can see the upcoming schedule of talks. You can sign up for our email list to be the first to know about the next talk scheduled. Please consider a donation. Badger Talks is supported by a grant from the Alumni Association, so we really appreciate your consideration of that to support our free programming. And you can also request a free speaker of your own for your upcoming event. We host about 200 speakers around the state a year at various events, so feel free to fill out the request form on our website. We'll look forward to seeing you all next week. Thanks for tuning in.